plotting, the hero of the film is the location. Because ultimately at the end of the day, you want your end user to benefit. Because you know that you win only if he wins.
What is your view on farm plots?
This business of future promise is not something that may stand the test of time.
What are the type of plotting projects that exist?
Broadly can be classified into three categories, two of which are the competent authorities.
I think there's some tax exemption that you get if you buy an agricultural land, right?
No, not really. That's just popular misconception.
So if a builder does not meet the promises, what happens?
And RERA also has the jurisdiction and the power to take over the project, identify other third party to finish the project.
Where should we invest?
You can always look at places abutting the outer ring road and all that, just off the outer ring road and all. But as the way things stand now, as we speak, the most prudent place to invest around Hyderabad will be
Hi everyone. Today we have Pradeep with us. He's the founder of Sri Sampada and he's been in the industry for about 15 years. And it's going to be a very, very exciting episode, guys. So stay tuned. Pradeep, thanks for coming and it's very exciting to have you here. I want to know about your experience. You've been in the industry for 15 years and how has it been for you?
It's been a very nice journey, a lot of learnings. The industry as such is a very dynamic one. We've seen both the highs and lows. So the highs give you a very nice feeling. The lows teach you a lot. So it's been a nice journey.
Great. We will have a very specific kind of conversation today, and I'm sure the audience, most of them might not be aware of these aspects, right? So what has been the whole plotting market in Hyderabad?
Plotting market as such, not just in Hyderabad, but around almost all major cities in India.
I heard you in and around Hyderabad, people would want to know that.
Has had its shares of ups and downs. But if you look at the long-term picture, plotting market has always returned good returns to the investor if the entry was a prudent one, wherever the entry was a prudent one. And when I say prudent, the price point at which you enter, the location, the legality and stuff like that.
So I think while you say that, right, I'm not sure if people are aware of what are the type of plotting projects that exist.
So predominantly it's broadly can be classified into three categories, two of which are pretty common or famous or whatever you may want to call it.
The HMDA.
Yeah. The competent authorities. So one is your HMDA, which is the Hyderabad Metropolitan Development Authority, which covers areas in and around the Hyderabad core city. Most of the other part in the state falls under the jurisdiction of the Directorate of Town and Country Planning,
DTC.
which is called, DTC. But other than these two things, there are also a few islands where the government has decided that the government has identified a few urban pockets and has notified UDAs. UDAs are Urban Development Authorities.
Okay.
So it's like this. If this is the entire geography of your state, this is core Hyderabad, which is your HMDA, and then most of it is DTCP.
Okay.
And within those DTCP zones, at times the government has identified few towns, like a Warangal, like a Mehboob Nagar recently, which I think happened last year. And then they notify it as an Urban Development Authority.
Okay.
So there the UDAs also have a competent authority. They more or less have the same powers that a HMDA has or a DTCP has.
All right. Okay.
So it's basically three kinds of competent authorities.
So in terms of investment, right, what what should you choose between the three or it doesn't matter?
No, more than looking at who the competent authority is, I think in plotting, the hero of the film is the location.
Okay.
Your location has to be apt. It has to be right. Okay. You can't go wrong with the location. Two, what is very critical is the kind of social infrastructure, the common infrastructure that is developed in the layout.
Okay.
So obviously there are other things like the legality of the land and
Yeah. So if they are approved, you don't have to worry about if they're approved by any of the three.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
You just have
So
to be
it's
approved
not
by.
like in the last episode we spoke about Gram Panchayat, where they don't really have the authority or the weightage.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but here it's different. All three of them have that.
So basically, it's like this. The Gram Panchayats, they don't have competent town planning guys.
Okay.
So there is a town planning officer, for instance, in HMDA. There is one in DTCP. There will be one in the UDA. But a Gram Panchayat as such is a small unit which does not have a competent town planning guy working for them. And so therefore, the Gram Panchayat was never a competent body
Okay.
to subdivide your land into residential plots or anything else.
I'm sure a lot of them didn't know about this, right? Like where the small pockets identified apart from HMDA and DTCP.
Yeah, the UDA.
Yeah, like I don't know about it. What is your view on farm plots? I don't know if that's the right term, but agricultural plots, I think. But can you give us some insight on that segment?
Honestly, there is a lot of gray around the subject. People are selling a lot of farm units. We did it initially, long back, but once we saw that there is a lot of gray involved, we kind of backed out from selling farm plots, because like I was saying, you need a competent authority to approve the design of your layout.
Okay.
You need somebody from the government to tell you that this is how the roads are going to be, this is how your sewer lines are going to be, this is how your electricity is going to be. This is the footpath, this is your avenue plantation, all that.
Okay.
In the absence of a competent authority, whatever your intention may be good. You end up doing whatever you think is right, and whatever you think is right may not be the right thing for the end user in the long run.
So, what are the things that you need to look at when maybe your intent is to buy a farmland, right? What are the pros and cons of it, of buying a farmland?
I won't say it's a bad thing to buy a farmland. Many people do buy. But the level of the due diligence has to be much, much higher if your intent is to buy a farm plot or a farmland. And any land, whether it is an approved layout, whether it is a farm layout, whatever it is, the pizza base is land, right? So the legality of the land becomes very, very critical.
Okay.
Whatever you do on it. So you'll have to look at all the revenue records. You'll have to hire a competent advocate, a lawyer who understands this pretty well. You can get a basic legal due diligence done.
Okay, I think the common scenario, I mean, a few of my friends were talking about it, where they buy it and they tell them that they will, say, do some kind of plantation, which can be anything.
That's right, yeah.
But eventually it didn't happen, and the whole plan actually didn't work out, and they really had a bad experience.
Correct.
So I think that's very common now. And like I asked you before, you also said that legality and all of that, right? What if a plotting project which did not exist before and is their first project, assuming, right? What should they look at apart from legality?
The end user, the buyers?
Yes.
See, you were mentioning about plantations and plotted land.
Yeah, I think it's lots that you see that the
Correct.
promotions that are that way.
Correct.
Yeah.
Like I said, we were also doing something like that when I just started off
Okay.
years back. But then see what happens in a very, very practical scenario is this business of future promise in real estate is not something that may stand the test of time
Okay.
in most cases.
All right.
See, as a promoter, what happens is you may have control on developing a project,
Right.
but once you get into dimensions like plantation, getting some return out of it, sharing it and all that, this is a very long story. This is a 10-15 year story.
Right. Okay.
Right. So when that kicks in, as a developer, what happens is, you would have sold your project. You would have gone to the next one. So you're fighting a new battle.
So you're saying that you need to have patience for projects like that?
Bandwidth, and a lot of dependency on nature. You don't know when what can go wrong. See, for instance, the plantation that we were doing whatever we could.
Okay.
And then COVID happened, and then
okay.
it all went spiraling out of control.
So the labor issue and
Labor issue and
Yeah.
all other issues.
Right.
So this business of future promise, especially when it comes to plotting and real estate, I think is not a very, very great one. So you stick to whatever you're doing now, go by the law, give them a good, durable product.
So your clearance is also, on the papers there's more clarity.
Right. With farm plots, there's no competent authority also.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, there's no competent authority.
All right.
So there's no such thing as farm plot in HMDA or a DTCP geo.
So we spoke about farm plots and the prices, right? They also tell you, I think there's some tax exemption that you get if you buy an agricultural land, right?
No, not really.
Isn't that part of? Okay.
No, not really. That's just popular misconception.
Oh, okay.
See, what happens is once you take a agriculture land and you divide it into plots, and once you start selling those plots to multiple people, the income that you get out of it is no longer agriculture income.
Oh, okay.
According to the Income Tax Act, what is exempted as in income tax is income that you get out of agriculture.
All right. Okay.
Right? This is real estate. This isn't agriculture.
Got it. Makes
Right?
sense.
So
Yeah.
you're taking a big parcel of land, you're making it into smaller pieces, and then selling it out at a higher price.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
got nothing to do with agriculture.
Okay. Got it.
So it still will be classified as a capital asset and not as a non-capital asset.
Okay. I think also one of the challenges with plotting projects is maintenance, right? You buy. I personally had that experience, right? I invested when I was very young, and it was a disaster because it was at a point that I couldn't even recognize the land, right? So I'm not sure if there are projects that charge maintenance, or should they charge maintenance to make sure that the plot that you saw is there, and because resale becomes a challenge if
That's right.
the land is not maintained.
That's right. So before you go to the maintenance part of it, what is more important is who was the competent authority who gave permission for the layout in which you had bought plots. Was it a Gram
Is it
Panchayat
one of?
layout?
Oh, okay.
In all probability, it would have been a Gram Panchayat layout. I'm not sure. Maybe it was a Gram Panchayat layout. So what happens in a Gram Panchayat layout is, one, in the absence of a competent authority, these guys can, just pivot, then just spin it off and sell it off as land, sell it off as something else. Because there's no competent authority. In the context of a competent authority, what happens is all the roads and the open spaces in the layout belong to the local body, to the local municipality or to the local government.
Okay.
Once that comes in, your plot is secure.
Okay.
Because the road is no longer the developer's own property or any individual's property, it is the government's property.
Okay.
And the roads are the one that are defining your plot, right?
And hence the value of the plot increases, or
Not necessarily in all cases, but at least your plot is secure.
okay.
Once you make out roads in that land,
Okay.
you pass on the roads to the government in form of a gift deed, which is mandatory. The government becomes the owner of all the roads and
Okay.
becomes public property.
Okay.
Once it becomes public property, nobody can just come and, remove the road and change the definition of the layout, which perhaps happened in your case.
Possible. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it's very, very important for us to stick to projects which have prior approvals from the right guys.
Okay.
And then for now the second part. As far as maintenance is concerned, it is very, very important for the project to be maintained post sales. Not just for the end user, but if you ask me, it's very good for the developer also.
Okay. And how is it good for the developer?
For his reputation,
Okay.
right? So if he's doing project number 6, and if project number 1 to 5 are in a pathetic state, it'll be difficult for him to sell project 6, right?
All right. Yeah.
Versus all your 5 projects are maintained well and all that. Now you're selling the 6th.
Okay.
You can showcase all these 5 to your new customers.
So you have a solid testimonial.
Have a solid testimonial. In fact, your existing customer becomes your brand ambassador. So maintenance is very important. Maintenance has to be done. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen sometimes.
I did not think of it that way because I come from a investor point of view and
Buyer, end user.
yeah.
point of view. Yeah.
And how, again, like I said, it was very difficult for me to sell the land, right? Because of the maintenance.
So most of these things, people think these are good things to do. Okay. You maintain the site after sales. It's a very good thing for the end user. I don't dispute that it's a good thing. No? Practically, from a developer's point of view, it is a very intelligent thing to do also. It is the right thing to do, right? Not just not you trying to be the good guy, but also, if you're smart enough to spend a few thousands and maintain your project.
And a developer who wants to be in the industry for a longer duration.
Collect some, and you're also engaging with your customer on a quarterly basis or on a monthly basis when you're collecting some basic maintenance fees and all that, right?
Yeah.
So you're keeping him in the loop, you're keeping him informed.
Right, okay.
You send out a newsletter perhaps once a month.
No, okay.
No. So yeah, maintenance is critical.
That's, I think, when inside that, I did not think of, from that kind of angle. So Pradeep, I want to, deep dive a little bit because there is a fear, amongst our audience to, before they buy a plot, right? I think it's a notion of, should we buy it? Should we not buy it? I don't know what is going to happen, right? I think that's the thought that people have. So I want to talk a little more, and maybe the audience will understand every aspect of it before they buy a plot.
Sure.
So what are the documents that they should look into before buying a plot?
Like I was saying some time back, the pizza base is land, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, and you'll have to look at the revenue record of the land on which the plotted project has happened or is happening.
And how do they look at?
So there's an entire process in which you approach it.
Okay.
Now, there's one revenue record that you look at. And then there is the sub-register office record, the SRO record. So in general, what the advocates do is they look at both and they match both of them,
Okay.
So they go back to maybe as early as 1954.
Okay.
For instance, they call the document which has captured the ownership of the land.
And do we have access to it?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
These are all public documents. They're available in the revenue offices and those places. There are ways in which you can get. So generally what all plotted developers or any developer for that matter does is they do a legal due diligence before signing a certain parcel of land.
Okay.
And they generally have access to all these lands because they would have done their due diligences. So before you actually, somebody comes, solicits sale from you, wants you to buy a plot or a flat, you can ask for all these documents.
Okay.
Engage with a proper advocate who understands on this well. And if the advocate asks for further documents, you can go back to the developer, ask for those documents, or you can reach out to the local revenue office, get them yourself.
Okay.
There are ways of doing it. And then so you go back to, perhaps at times, more often than not, you go back to 1954 and start looking at the record from there.
Got it. Okay.
And then you look at the revenue record, you tally it with the SRO record, the sub-register office record.
Okay.
You look at both and then you arrive at who the current title holder is. You see if there are any glitches, bottlenecks and all that.
Multiple owners or...
Yeah, whatever it is.
Okay.
So, but it's not as difficult or complicated as people make it out.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward.
I think it's lack of knowledge also. Like there's so many things that you said I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, lack of knowledge, and at times you go as an individual to a government office, you get this very, very not so invited feeling. You walk in and ask for a paper because everybody's busy, they're all understaffed.
Yeah. And to take out records from 1954, I'm sure. Yeah.
There was this instance when long back, I think in 2009, I was trying to get some record from the collector's office in a certain district.
Okay. In Hyderabad.
Yeah, around Hyderabad. I don't want to name the district, but then the record assistant there told me it's going to take time. I have to dig deep into the records. They came back and they said, "Sir, we cannot give you the record. It's there, but we cannot give you." I asked him why. He said, "There's a snake in the record room." Yeah. So he said, "There's a snake in the record room." So I told him, "Go get a snake catcher."
It's almost like dog ate my homework kind of story.
Yeah. So the revenue record keeping is not very great, which is why successive governments have been trying to bring things like Dharani and all these things to streamline, and it's a continuous process. It's a battle.
Okay, and it's possible that because it's physical records, I think from 1954 would be physical records.
Most of them have been digitized.
Okay.
Most of them have been digitized right now.
We spoke about the documents, and how do we know if the plot is, under mortgage? Or should we invest in a plot like that?
No, you shouldn't.
Okay.
Ideally, you shouldn't. So what happens is when you're building an apartment or when you're doing a layout, the competent authority, we spoke about HMDA, DTCP and all these guys generally mortgage 15% of your total inventory
Okay.
till the time you finish the development in the project
Okay.
as promised.
Okay.
So you'll have to comply to certain government norms, the norms that have been laid down, and so the town planning guys and everybody come and check whatever you're doing. And once they see that roads have been laid as promised, the open spaces have been earmarked properly as promised, there are water harvesting pits, as simple as water harvesting pits.
Okay.
There's a right transformer in place, there's a water tanker, overhead tank,
Okay.
all these things in place. Once all these things are in place, the government then comes and says, okay, here is the 15% that I was holding, 15% of your inventory that I was holding. Now I'm letting go of my lien on this asset and you're free to sell.
And this applies in Hyderabad and around Hyderabad. It's the same thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
more or less 15%. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
So once that happens, the developer is free to sell and the end user is free to buy. But
Okay.
till such a time, it's people do it. People sell, people buy. All that happens. But if you ask me, strictly speaking, better off without doing it.
Talking about the sales, right? Why isn't the sale done depending on the milestones of the plot?
So you're saying now, suppose somebody is building a house.
Yeah.
Saying, okay, foundation ke time mein this much money.
Correct. That's what I meant.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what you meant, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what happens in a plot is, the life cycle is not like that of a building,
Okay.
right? So you're not actually doing something on the plot. You're just laying roads and whatever. In slightly mature markets like Bangalore, for instance, the end user gets to take a almost 100% loan on the plot.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay.
So the bank works closely with the developer and says, Chara, you finish off the roads, I'll release this much. You finish off the drain, I'll give you this much. You finish off the avenue plantation, I'll release this much. This happens
Okay.
in places like Bangalore.
Okay.
But here, more often than not, what happens is there is a practice of, the bank value is very close to the circle rate. And there is a significant difference between the circle rate and the market rate.
Okay.
So it's very difficult for us to...
What is the circle rate? I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that is.
Circle rate is your guideline value. The guideline value so the government fixes a normal, a common minimum price.
So which is a government value.
The government value.
Yeah.
But what the developer ends up selling is always more often than not higher than the government value.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
So which we call as the market value. So in mature markets, what happens is the circle value and the market value, they're almost more or less there.
Okay.
In markets where most of the plotting happens in and around Hyderabad, there is a significant difference between the circle value and the market value.
Okay.
So it becomes all the more difficult to structure it the way you're saying.
Got it. Okay. So it's not a set definition.
No, very difficult.
All right. So, we spoke about the milestones and the payment depending on the milestones of a project. A lot of people would also like to know, because a lot of people start investing maybe at an average, in their 30s, and but they don't have that kind of funds, right? So they take a loan. I think most of them do, right? And how does that work? The whole loan aspect of it.
So there are
for a builder and for
the buyer.
The user. Yeah.
A lot of these banks and financial institutions that are willing to fund customers who are willing to buy a plot. But what happens more often than not is there is a lot of difference in the government value and the market value.
Okay.
The government value is the guideline value as established by the government.
Okay.
The market value is the more or less the rate at which the
builder
plot sells there. Yeah.
Okay.
The plot sells there. So when it comes to flats and apartments and all that, this value is more or less same.
Okay.
In mature markets, what happens is there is not much gap. I've mentioned it previously also. There's not much gap between the guideline value and the market value.
Okay.
But in suburbs where predominantly most of the plotting happens, there is a significant difference between the government guideline value
and the sale
market
price.
value.
Okay.
So a bank coming in, though a bank is willing to come in, there is some confusion around, this whole process. So generally banks are not so keen in funding, customers who are willing to buy plots which are far away from your core areas, which is why you'll see most banks saying if it is a HMDA layout, we'd be more than happy to fund. If it is a DTCP, we are not so gung-ho about.
Is that because of the difference in the value?
One of the reasons is that.
And I'm sure it's not a set thing for all the banks.
No, it's not.
They look into it as an individual situation and then take a call.
Correct.
Okay. So when you do that as a loan, right, how much % of the loan should they take ideally? What works in terms of ROI? What works for them?
See, ROI is a very, very relative term to use in this context because, see, anybody who's investing in plots is talking about a long runway.
Okay.
Right? It's not buy today and sell next year.
Right,
Like that. Generally, it's not like that.
It's a long-term investment. Yeah.
See, all these core areas in Hyderabad today, there are places like Srinagar Colony. There's so many other colonies now, right? All these colonies were once layouts only. Jubilee Hills was a layout.
Right, yeah.
Right? So it was, I think, if I'm not wrong, it was Asia's largest layout.
Jubilee Hills.
Yeah.
Okay.
The society is a very, very big society. And so it was a layout. People back then got only plots in Jubilee Hills.
Okay.
So the takeaway for us is, as long as the location is right, as long as your infrastructure is in place,
and your legality.
and legality is covered, I think, you'll be good to go, provided you enter at the right price point.
So when you talk about the price point, how do they know if it's a right price point?
So these days, there's a lot of information available on the public domain as well.
Yeah, like you were saying that the documents are available online.
No, that's for the legality. It's for
Okay.
the legality. But even as far as prices are concerned, now suppose I send you a location of a certain development, about 40 kilometers from here. Then you have the location pin, you open up, and then you'll see 5 or 6 other projects around
Okay.
in that catchment, right?
Got it.
So all you have to do is just key in there, Google them, call them, and find out what the prices are. It's not very difficult
Okay.
to find out
So
the
this
prices are
is
right.
basic.
Very basic due diligence,
Yeah.
and you more or less are there.
Yeah.
After that, what you do is you actually go to the site and see the development for yourself,
Okay.
and you understand if it is. It's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
You're seeing if the roads are laid well. You're seeing if the sewer and the MEP.
Like do like a surprise visit.
No, not necessarily. Even if you don't surprise them, they can't change anything,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
So you go have a look at it, do some due diligence for yourself, and then maybe take a call.
So, assuming that there are no any other plotting around that, and this is the one that's there, and the villages around, and should you have a red flag, consider it as a red flag.
Not all the time.
Okay.
Not all the time.
In terms of ROI.
Yeah,
is what I mean.
yeah. In which you can decipher the right price for a plot in an area where there aren't many developments. Because you will also definitely be able to find out the value of land per acre there.
Okay.
If you're not able to arrive at some existing price point per square area, you'll definitely be able to, get a price point per acre there.
Okay.
All it takes is about a couple of weekends of going to that area, talk to a few random people.
Okay.
It's not very difficult. Trust me, it's not difficult, but most people, they either don't know or they don't want to do.
Right, I'm sure they don't know if these are basic.
Very basic and easy things to do.
Like we are speaking about ROI. As an overall picture, would you want to give your insights in terms of investment and your return?
Let's talk constants for a minute. Okay. Take Hyderabad or take India or take the globe, take the world. There's only so much land, right? You can't manufacture land. All of us agree on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the population is growing.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Now, in the context of these two things, you come to, because we're talking Hyderabad and in and around Hyderabad, let's come to the context of Hyderabad. 10 years before, we are in 2024, 2014. I remember very well, if you drove past Mokila, all that was very, very deserted. It was very deserted.
Okay.
They were all not so good layouts there. Most of them were classified as sick units.
Sick units are not fertile land?
No. The sick units are units where your sale didn't happen as expected.
Okay.
Development isn't on the promised lines and stuff like that. But now you see, you've crossed Mokila, you've gone to Shankarpalli also. Shankarpalli, there are apartments coming up.
Yes, yeah.
Within just a matter of 10 years or so.
Yeah.
So the city will continue to grow. And there's only so much land. Right? And as far as a buyer is concerned, who generally is your real estate buyer? More often than not, your real estate buyer is the middle class. Right?
Yeah.
What drives the real estate market is predominantly the middle class.
Right.
Now, for the middle class, what are the avenues of investment that they have? They either invest in stocks, they can invest in gold, or they can invest in land. When I say stocks or your SIPs or mutual funds,
yeah.
whatever. Or gold, because gold has some emotional value.
Yeah. I think it's in the culture. Embedded in our culture, yeah.
Yeah, embedded in our culture. And otherwise, it is land. Now, by process of elimination, how many people know to invest in stocks and mutual funds and all that? Not many.
Yeah.
Gold, there's only so much gold you'll buy, whatever its emotional value.
Yeah.
And if you actually look at the return on investment on gold, it's not very great.
It's just a myth that people have, or just a...
No, the rates have gone up. Gold rates have gone up. But if you look at the time versus money...
The graph doesn't look like it.
Yeah. But when you come to land, because there's only so much land and we're all emotionally attached to real estate related investments, don't you see people buying a flat and then immediately they do puja there? It's emotional for them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so as far as investments are concerned, the middle class has been emotional about investing in land, is emotional about investing in land, and will be emotional about investing in land. So as a developer, I think it's very important. Now, just to deviate a little from whatever we've been speaking, it's very important that we also share that emotion to a certain level.
Yeah.
You as a developer appreciate how important this is for your end user, and do whatever you can within your limitation, within your strength, to make sure that the customer gets a good product.
Right.
That becomes very important. As long as you do that, as long as your location is right, your legality is right, your price point is right, your development is right, you're good. Your customer is in safe hands, and if your customer is in safe hands, you as a developer also
are going to grow in the market.
Undoubtedly.
Right. I think now where should we invest? What, we were talking about in and around Hyderabad. What is a good area to invest? Assuming everything is in place for legality, the builder is great, with a good reputation and all of that. We've checked everything. But in terms of area, how should we shortlist?
See, the general perception is, so if you look at the outer ring road around Hyderabad, and maybe perhaps slice it like a pizza, then you have the east, west, north and south quadrants. The west is the financial district and all of that. And you know how expensive land prices are, how populated it is and all that. The other three quadrants, you can always look at places abutting the outer ring road and all that, just off the outer ring road and all that. That's what everybody does. But going further ahead, there are catchments beyond the outer ring road.
Okay.
Now, suppose, for instance, you go south. There is a catchment slightly away from Hyderabad. That will be a good investment avenue.
Okay.
You go to the east, there will be a catchment.
Okay.
So you'll have to look at these catchments, take informed decisions. But as the way things stand now, as we speak, the most prudent place to invest around Hyderabad will be towards the south.
So you feel that it's going to have more traction in the future?
Absolutely.
Because you have a lot of people coming and settling in Hyderabad.
That's right.
Right? But they're not very aware of what other areas that are north, south, east and west. So if you could tell the areas, because I think most of the IT crowd stays towards the Hitec City, Madhapur and now Kokapet.
Yeah, most of the IT crowd, I think, works this side.
Yeah, and I think because they work this side,
Good percentage of them.
Yeah.
Good percentage of them. So For me, I think if I'd have to prioritize, I'd say south, towards the south, Shadnagar, I think will be on my number one.
Okay.
Because if you're looking at a budget of about, say 60 lakh, 50, 60 lakh kind of a thing, buying a plot, I think that'll be a good place to.
And it is possible to get a plot for that price.
Yeah.
Because now in terms of real estate investment, the average has gone up so much, whether it's an apartment, right?
See, if you go back and look at, recollect what perhaps your parents were saying, or anybody else that matter said 20 years back when they spoke about buying a piece of land or a flat, they would have said, no, I got it at 5 lakh rupees, very, very expensive, right? I'm sure you would have heard.
Yeah.
Today, you will hear somebody saying, I bought it at 1 crore, this is very expensive. 10 years from now, you will still hear people saying, I got it at 5 crores, this is very expensive.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. So this will go on. There will never be a time where people will cease to invest in land. It's just that you always should be in a position to give them a good proposition, genuinely good proposition.
Okay.
As long as you're doing that, I think, your end user will be happy, and so will you be.
In terms of RERA, right? We haven't, I think, touched that topic.
We didn't, yeah.
Yeah. RERA, what impact has it had in the plotting sector?
So RERA applies to both plots, apartments, and
right, yeah.
And RERA is beginning to have a very good positive impact on the real estate sector at large.
For both consumers and builders?
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes. So what exactly does RERA stand for? RERA is your Real Estate Regulatory Authority.
Yeah.
They basically, their job is to regulate real estate. When we say regulate, primarily it is about the promises that the developers make during the process of sale. Okay, now suppose I'm building an apartment here. I'm promising a 50,000 square foot clubhouse with a swimming pool and all that. Previously, there was no readdressal mechanism in place for a consumer if the developer
builder
does not
fulfill those promises.
But right now, it's not possible to get away with it.
Okay.
A. B, it also tries to control your cash flows.
Okay.
RERA, what it does is, it doesn't allow you to, back then what happened is, if I had 3 projects, if a developer had 3 projects, he could solicit money in project A, use the money for project B, start off project B, make some money there, put it in project C. Make money in project C, bring it back to project A.
Okay.
Right? So this used to happen previously, but right now it's not possible. So the money that you make in a certain project has to be spent in that project only. You'll not be able to withdraw the money. So 70% of that is put in a escrow.
Okay.
And you need to spend the money on agreed heads only. For instance, if you're doing a layout, you can, within the 70%, you can pay to your road contractor. You can pay for the cement guy, you can pay for your steel, you can pay to your plantation guy, you can do all that. You cannot take that money and pay some other landowner.
It is for that project.
Specifically for that project, till you get your OC, which is your occupancy certificate.
Okay.
So the intent behind, it's a great thing. The intent behind doing that is to ensure that the money collected on the name of that project is spent on that project only.
So you say it's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely good. What this also did is, looking at it from another perspective, what this also did is, this also acted as a filter. Okay. See, real estate is an industry where there aren't great barriers of entry, right? Every other guy, they're doing real estate.
Yeah.
Right? So it's easy to float a real estate company and try to do a project. But once you have such laws in place, once there is compliance that you have to adhere to, no matter what, this also acts as a natural filter. So the non-serious players are slowly
out of the picture.
weeded out of the system, which is good for the ecosystem at large. Which is good for the end user, because ultimately your end user is a guy who's putting his hard-earned money and a lot of trust, right?
Okay. So if a builder does not, say, meet the promises as per what was proposed, what happens what is the process that a consumer needs to follow?
there is a retrieval mechanism embedded in the RERA Act. You can go approach the authority, and they perhaps can they will leave a penalty on the developer and ask him to stick to his promise. If that does not happen, RERA also has the jurisdiction and the power to take over the project from the developer, identify other third party, another developer
To finish the project.
And ensure that the consumer gets his product.
So suppose a builder, and I think this has happened before, where they try and sell the same property to different people, right? What happens in that situation?
That was the case. You're right. That was the case, I think, years back.
Yeah.
But I don't think that happens a lot these days.
Yeah, I think people are more aware.
More aware. And once you have, like we were talking some time back, once you have competent authority, giving you permissions and all that, each plot in an approved layout is also numbered by the government. You don't give it a number. The developer doesn't give it a number. The government gives it a number.
So what happens to the plots that were sold much earlier and maybe they were not aware of it? Maybe, say my grandfather, bought it when he was young and he wasn't very aware that the same plot was sold to, say, 3 different people.
Yeah.
So what happens then?
So this is where there's a lot of gray. There has been a lot of gray.
Okay.
There are a lot of, I think, lakhs and lakhs of cases pending in the courts. And it's very difficult to,
Because all 3 own it. Yeah.
Everybody has a registered document and all that. Generally, law says that the first guy, the guy who registered this first, will have the right of ownership.
Okay.
And then the law says that, but to actually get it implemented and all that is a very tough thing in our context. Back then, all these guys who, maybe your grandfather's time or your father or whoever, people who've got plots in Gram Panchayat layouts, I'm not saying none of them made money, none of them could protect their plots. But the difference, the fundamental difference between a approved layout and a non-approved one is, if it's an approved layout, even if you're not regularly visiting your site and all that, nothing much happens because your plot is defined by a road which the government takes over.
Right. Okay.
Right. So it's very difficult for anybody to come and change the layout.
Okay.
In a GP layout, that's not the case. In a Gram Panchayat layout,
But within the layout, they can't do anything.
nothing.
Okay.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Okay.
Unless you go apply for a revised layout, again to the same competent authority.
So again, look, it's a grey area. So we can't have a set because there are a lot of friends that came to me and said that this is what happened. So I wanted to check with you if there's anything that is in place to solve an issue like that.
Successive governments have also come up with regularization schemes.
Okay.
It's called LRS. LRS is your layout regularization scheme. Where
Like LRS and BRS.
LRS and BRS, yeah.
Okay.
So like you've bought a plot some time back, layout that hasn't been approved by competent authority. So today you pay a small development fee or something to the government, and the government recognizes this as a regular layout and gives you a regularization,
So this HMDA or DTC?
wherever.
Okay, so but this is the unit that does it.
So
Okay.
there is a layout where end users have bought the plot.
Okay.
Everything has been done, but all this has happened without the prior approval of a competent authority.
Okay.
Then in retrospect, what the government does is, now you cannot undo the ownership of 200, 300 people, right? Layout. So you come up with a mechanism where you take a betterment fee,
Okay.
ensure roads and everything are done, and get it as close to possible as a approved layout.
All right. Okay.
So this is for things that have happened in the past already.
Past, and to
Because you
correct.
can't undo it.
Okay.
You
So
can't
this
undo
is more like a corrective action.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That
So the
can't be the norm.
But the government recognizes it and
Yeah, some of them the government
Okay.
did in the past. I think there is something going on even now.
okay.
There's an LRS scheme that was floated recently. Many people have applied for it. All these
Okay.
plots may get regularized in the future.
I think they stopped it in between the government, right?
They did.
Yeah.
But then a lot of applications that they took back then. So all those applications are
They're-
pending applications at the government.
All right. But they're not taking new applications,
Right
right?
now, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I also wanted to understand what is the importance of infrastructure in plotting.
See, the 3 most critical things in a plotted development are location, infrastructure, and obviously the legality. While and you can't take away anything from this. All of them are very, very important.
Okay.
Now, specifically as far as infrastructure is concerned, see, suppose there is a plotted development which has, say, 200 plots, and you end up buying one plot. And the developer does not lay good roads. He doesn't do a proper sewer network. Right? You on your own, you will never be able to go redo the road network. Because you just own one in 200 plots.
Right.
Yeah. So it's very, very important for the developer engage professional consultants or professional engineers or people like that who have the competence to suggest and design infrastructure that will stand the test of time. Because most plotted developments around Hyderabad, in and around Hyderabad, are not ones in which the end user is going to come and build a home tomorrow, right? It has a certain gestation period, 5-10 years at times also, right? So you need to do infrastructure keeping that in mind. You should plan your infrastructure to ensure that the layout, the roads in the layout, the common infrastructure in the layout, your sewer lines, your water lines, your electricity lines
is ready to go.
Yeah, they're all standing.
Yeah.
And the day your end user, your plot buyer, decides to buy a home, he just needs to get some marking done, start digging, and you should be able to build. In that sense, it has to be plug and play.
Got it.
So your design has to be done in such a way today.
And will electrical setup also come in the picture for this?
Yeah. That's part of the checklist that you'll have to adhere to in order to apply for your occupancy certificate.
I think we spoke about a lot of things in different parts. And just to summarize, and to make it easier for the audience to maybe put it all together in a structure, what is a step-by-step process of buying a plot?
See, from the, I'll tell you, let me just break it up into two things. One from a customer point of view, from a buyer point of view, and one from a developer's point of view also. I'll just tell you how it will sit perfectly in a very ideal setting. See, for the customer, access is everything in real estate. When I say access, location. Access to your project has to be good. To the, like we just spoke, the common infrastructure within the project, the road network, drain network, and all those things have to be immaculate. It is very, very important for you to experience good appreciation of the plot.
Does RERA keep a check on this as a...
RERA more or less, RERA does not get into the technicality. They do not get into the micro technicality of. So suppose I say I'm going to lay CC roads, cement roads. RERA will definitely see if I'm laying CC roads or no. RERA will not have the competence to see if the grade of the concrete that I put in the road is right or no. Now that's where I think the developers part of the thing has to kick in.
Like the sewage and the electricity and all of that is on the developer to do it. It's not part of RERA.
RERA will see if you're doing it or not.
But not to what quality.
Rightly or not. Is, I think, the greatest measure of that will come from the conscience of the developer. The moral side of it, predominantly, in the absence of some very strong regulatory. See, what happens generally is, like we spoke some time back, who's your plot buyer? He's a middle class guy, right? You were just talking about people in their 30s trying to save up money to buy a plot and all that. Now imagine this. There is this guy who's working in an IT company making ₹1 lakh or something a month, right? He spends 70% of his money towards his monthly expenditure, his home rent, vehicle EMI, insurance, this, that, and all. 70 or 80% more often than not. And he ends up saving this 20,000 rupees every month. And he does this for a good 5 years.
Or maybe more.
Okay. So at the end of the 5 years, what is this man saving? He's saving what? 20,000 a month into 60 months, about 12 lakh rupees. Now, after, choosing not to go to a restaurant in the third week of the month, after choosing not to go buy something because he has to save this money, because he has a mutual fund to pay for, because he has an EMI
It's
to
a
pay
big
for.
step that
Very
they take,
big step.
like emotionally, and
Now just imagine.
has a
you're
lot of
doing this.
impact.
You're doing this day in and day out. Yeah. You're doing this day in and day out, and you're saving this 5,000, 10,000 rupees. And then you put all of that together, and then you go searching for a developer. You find one fellow who's talking very nicely to you. You find a developer, and you go give all this money to this developer with the hope that this plot that you're buying will come in handy if you have to get off your daughter married.
Yeah.
With the hope that this will come in handy if you have to get your son educated. And then 2-3 years later, you go and see that there's no proper road there. Right. So it's not just that 10 lakh or 12 lakh. It's a lot of emotion. It's a lot of trust that he's placed in you.
Yeah.
So RERA is there. There is a HMDA. There are competent authorities. There are governments. But it is very, very important for a developer also to understand and appreciate the fact that the value of your end user, your customer's 1 rupee, is very, very high than the value of the developer's 1 rupee.
Okay. To keep that sense of the emotion of a consumer with yourself.
I don't know of businesses or business houses that have made very big without a fair share of emotion.
Yeah.
In their
Sure,
thing.
yeah.
Business is not just about balance sheet. No?
Yeah.
It's also about emotion. It's also about so many other things.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of businesses here have been successful with connecting with your customer, right? Like,
Absolutely.
let it be any business if you have to look at.
Yeah. So the minute you start as a business, the minute you start appreciating effort the guy has put in to collect this 10-20 lakh rupees and the emotion he's invested. Imagine you buy a plot, you get the document, you go back home with a sweet box.
And in fact, he'll continue to do those little sacrifices because he'll make the down payment.
Absolutely.
And then he'll take a loan.
Absolutely.
And that goes on for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is why you as a developer, you have to make sure that this investment is worth his effort, his trust, and all that, because it's very, very pure money coming to you.
And as a business, I think it's going to be amazing because he will then get in maybe another 10 people.
Yeah, irrespective of that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, it's great. References are a great way to
I think
grow your
especially in real estate, it has a lot of value, right? So references.
It has.
Yeah.
But then, it's a very good thing. It can happen, but essentially, you don't do it for that. You do it because it's the right thing to do.
But the whole cycle is just a win-win situation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. One thing feeds the other.
Yeah.
So once you start looking at it this way, I think, there obviously will be a RERA and all your other competent authorities, but you as a developer, on your own volition, you'll want to come up with a product that will stand the test of time. You'll want to do good roads. You'll want to put a good, common infra in place. You will ensure that you will leave no stone unturned to make sure that the legality is in place.
Right.
You'll scout for the right location.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you want your end user to benefit. Because you know that you win only if he wins, right? You can't win at his cost, at his expense. You win only if he wins.
Now I've bought the plot. All right. Now it's come a time where, okay, I need to get my children educated. They want to go abroad. They're very smart children, so I want to empower them, right? Now time for me to sell.
Right.
It's resale time for the plot. What are the things that I need to look at? And what is the whole process of resale of a plot?
More or less the things that you look at when you buy as far as price is concerned. See, when you're buying 5 years ago, 10 years ago, you bought a plot. You do the due diligence that we discussed about, right? You do some catchment analysis, get the price points there and all that. You more or less do the same thing again when you choose to sell, right? So you know what the prevailing prices are. You know how much you've got it for. And if the development happens in a very good location, for all you know, few years later, you may have few people building houses in your layout, right? If it's a good development and all that, then your value of your plot goes up significantly once people start living
Got it. Okay.
in your layout. So if that really happens, then it's very easy for you to find buyers, which is why for, keeping this in mind, keeping your eventual exit, proposed exit in mind, 5 or 10 years later, today, A developer has to make sure the location is good, the infrastructure is good,
Right.
the legality is right, and all that. So once all these things are in place, people who buy are encouraged to come and build, and there's some inhabitation there. Once inhabitation is there, your value goes up and your exit becomes easier. And your whole experiences will be a very nice one.
We spoke about the positive side of having a good experience while I, sell my plot again. What are the challenges that could come with this?
Start with if there are scenarios where these three primary things haven't been adhered to. Now, suppose say you've done very, very good infrastructure.
Okay.
But you haven't taken enough care. You haven't taken enough care to look at the legality, the title of the land. Okay. This may lead to some court case or something 5 years down the lane or 6 years.
Okay.
Right. So you may have a great location, you may have great infrastructure, but you have a court case that's like hanging sword on your neck. That will kill the appreciation. That won't give you the desired.
The litigation.
The litigation won't give you the desired appreciation. Now, suppose you've looked at the legality. It's immaculately clean. And the location is very good. But you've laid very, very bad roads, very bad drain network, very bad water network. Still, you will not get your appreciation.
Okay.
Right. So it's very important. And suppose you do a great job with the infrastructure, and suppose the legality is right, and the location is not right. Suppose it's not in a right catchment. You still will not get your appreciation. So which is why this is, view it like a tripod stand. No?
Yeah.
Like you need all these things in the right proportion. And if you have it in the right proportion, your experience more or less will be good. More often than not will be good. If any of these things are lacking, then there is proportionate amount of risk involved.
Got it. Okay. So it's basically the experience of entering.
The experience of what?
Entering. Because we're talking about exit. I'm just putting it now, how you enter is how you will exit. It's the whole experience, right? Because if you did your due diligence in terms of all the checklists, your exit also is going to be as smooth as your entry.
Absolutely. You get your basics right when you're getting in. You can be rest assured that you're covered as far as your exit is concerned whenever you want to choose to exit.
Right.
Okay. And the harder, the more the effort you put in during the entry, the easier it is for you to exit.
Got it. Okay. So what is a suggestion in terms of duration, right? Like, say I'm buying it today. Should I keep in mind an average number of, say, years before I sell it?
It depends again primarily on where this project that you're going to buy in is located. Now, if it's very close to an existing town and all that, you can look at a 3 to 5 year horizon.
Okay.
If it's slightly away from the town, and from when I say town, a local catchment where there is a lot of inhabitation. That's what I mean. If you know that it's slightly away, then it may take about 5 to 7 years.
Okay.
Right. So generally, investments in plots, most people when they invest in plots, it's generally for the long term.
Right. Okay.
They want to play the wait game, and you more often than not get great returns only if
you wait
it out.
Yeah.
You look at all the developments. Look at Jubilee Hills.
Yeah.
Jubilee Hills was, when people bought it, they were buying it at 1,200 rupees a square yard.
Well, my grandfather did. So he always compared the price to what it was and what it's now. Yeah.
Now they're saying it's 3 lakh rupees a square yard.
Yeah. That's insane. Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with Madhapur. That's what happened with Gachibowli. That's what is happening with Kokapet today.
Yeah.
That's what is happening.
I think it's a sudden boom in Kokapet. Like I think rapid growth.
So these cycles keep coming. So when you position yourself well, looking at legality, location, and all that, you position yourself well and you wait for the cycle to come. Right. This is like you're riding the wave. You're in a very, very strong. You're sitting on a very strong footing, and you're waiting for that wave to come and take. So these are cycles that the market will experience.
Talking about resale, right? Is today a good time to sell?
Good time to sell. I'd rather classify this time as more of a buyer's market than a seller's market.
Okay.
So if you're a seller, you wouldn't have the natural advantage that you'd have in a market which is very vibrant or, very active.
Okay.
So this may not be the best time to sell. If one can hold off, I think this is the time that you should wait out.
Okay. And do we know how long should we wait it out?
It's very difficult to say, give it a time frame and all that. But if you try to make an attempt at reading patterns and all that, I think maybe give it 6 months to 1 year.
So this is what, in your experience, you think that's a good time to wait?
Yeah, because a lot of action has happened previously.
Right. Yeah. With
Many
the
things,
elections coming in,
Too
a lot
many
of other things.
too many
Yeah.
things that have disrupted the
Yeah.
general equilibrium of the
Okay.
market. New government, new policies.
And maybe the frequency also has been too close to each other.
Yeah, one after the other, especially in the context of Hyderabad. So it's better to wait out, give it another 6 months or a year's time,
Okay.
and I think should be okay.
If you had 50 lakhs, and how would you invest it, and where would you invest it?
With 50 lakhs, I'd still place my bets on the south side of Hyderabad.
Okay.
If the great avenues, I'd also maybe look at perhaps a little bit of north.
Okay.
But as far as price points and all those things are concerned, I'd stick to south.
Okay.
Hyderabad.
So in south, what would be your first choice?
Any places around Shadnagar all the way up to Mehboob Nagar.
Okay.
That stretch,
All right.
not beyond that, but within that.
Okay.
And I'd also look at catchments that are, I'd look at locations that are very close to big towns. Now, for instance, I'd look at Shadnagar town.
Okay. Because that's now developing very well.
Developing very well, and a lot of existing population, about a lot of traction there and all that. So
Okay.
in and around that.
Okay. And in north, would you be able to suggest a few areas that you think can have a good ROI?
Beyond Medchil, beyond Shamirpet, there are many pockets that are doing, that have been doing very well. Now the market is more or less hit a plateau almost everywhere.
Okay.
But then if 50 lakhs is your ticket size, I think these two
Okay.
catchments, I think, will be a good bet.
I think now for the $1 million question, is it a good time to buy?
Yeah, like I said, this is a buyer's market. And as long as you check on all those boxes that we've been discussing
Yeah.
through our, through this podcast, as long as you're comfortable with the location, with the legality, with the price point, and with the development that's happening there, it's not a bad idea to invest. There are layouts where a lot of traction is not happening, a lot of plots, there are a lot of unsold inventory. But we've also seen that if your location is very good and if your development is good and all those things, you're still able to sell. Suppose there are 100 customers out there on a good day. Today you may have 30 customers, you may have 40 customers. So these 40 customers are the picky ones, right? They pick and choose.
Okay.
More so now because they have multiple options. They have a lot of people soliciting
Right. Yeah.
their interest, all that. So as long as your location, you're right on your location and infrastructure and all that, I think it's a good time.
Okay.
Not a very bad time to.
All right.
It's a good time to buy.
Because in your experience, would you say that the journey, I'm sure that you've had a journey where you've seen the graph drastically go up or go down and maybe fumble a little bit, right? In your experience, you say that even if you buy it now, there will be a time where the market is going to go skyrocket.
I wouldn't use the term skyrocketing because it's a very tricky thing to say.
Because that's happened with Coca-Cola, so that's what I'm putting
happen.
together.
It
Yeah.
did happen. So see what happens. Everything has a ceiling, like this building. Everything has a ceiling. The minute you skyrocket, there is every chance that you hit and you
Bounce back down.
Right. If you're growing, right? If there is a premise to your growth, if there's a basis to the escalated price point, then what will happen generally is you hit the ceiling, and then you plateau for a bit,
Okay.
and then again you see an opportunity, and then you
Okay.
you
So you
escalate.
say that consistent growth in the graph is much better than this hitting,
Absolutely. Because
suddenly just going.
Yeah, this is not in gambling, right? This is prudent investment. This is about waiting out over long periods of time. This is about doing proper due diligence
Right. Yeah.
on that, right? So I'd vote for consistent growth over
Just to shoot up and
any day growth over boom.
interesting. Pradeep, this has been a very, very insightful and interesting conversation with you. I've learned so much, right? Like, assuming I want to invest tomorrow, I know exactly what to do. And I'm sure that's the case for the audience here. A lot of insight, there were some things that I wasn't aware of. And I really, really appreciate that you've taken out the time and given all your insights. And very, very valuable insight, right? Thank you again for coming.
It was a pleasure.
It's been great. It's a great conversation.
Same here. Thank you so much.